Well, thank you very much and good evening, folks. Welcome back for another virtual concert. Nice to have you with us tonight. This evening's performance is called A Night of Boogie and Blues. I think it's been 2 or 3 years since I've done this, both early ragtime era blues songs of the 1920s, and then of course later on in the program I'll get into some boogie woogie as well, which is nothing but fast blues. It's the same 12-bar musical pattern. And that first piece was the Memphis Blues, written by W.C. Handy, supposedly written as early as 1909. And Handy became, I think, the most significant composer of this type of music. He was the man who really popularized the blues, and I do love his music. So that piece was not published until 1912, the Memphis Blues, but it's one of the more important early works in this genre. And as you will hear, in the early days, the blues and ragtime were very similar. The blues were played up tempo for dancing, at least until the latter part of the 20s, and when it kind of slowed down and changed a bit. But I'm going to play these tunes the way that I was taught to play them by Johnny Maddox, as dance tunes. And here's one from 1915, I believe, maybe 1916, that was written by the pianist with W.C. Handy's orchestra, Will Nash, and it's called the Snaky Blues. Thank you so much, the Snaky Blues. And the subtitle of that piece of music is An Etude in Ragtime. My grandmother loved that tune, so I've been playing it for many years. It has an unusual bass pattern in the second section of the music. Johnny brought that out with octaves in the bass. I love it, and so I've always played it that way. Now let me play another blues by a different composer for you now. The same year, 1915, this was written by the great classic ragtime writer Artie Matthews from St. Louis. And my guess is that the music publisher, John Stark, probably asked him to write a blues song because that became a very popular term, a commercial term that could sell music in the 1910s, a long time ago. And so he wrote the Weary Blues, which features one of the very first published walking bass or boogie-woogie patterns in the left hand. And it goes all the way back to 1915. A lot of traditional jazz bands have played this over the years as well. So here's the Weary Blues. Thank you very much. Weary Blues by Artie Matthews. Well, it looks like everything's working tonight. I did hear that the fiber optic internet may be available within the next week, so that is great news. I love the number you're doing with the walking bass part. Yeah, that is neat. That's what makes Weary Blues a neat piece. Well, I see a lot of my regulars. Greetings to Bill Huffman, Marilyn Schoon, Terry in San Angelo, Texas. Wow. And Wendell from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They're all on Facebook. Oh, got about 6 people on Twitch. Thank you, folks. I'm getting darn close to 9,000 subscribers on YouTube. I have to do something special when I get to 10,000. And if you're new to my virtual concerts, I do accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and every little bit is helpful to my career. It helps me make a living out of ragtime and jazz, music that's in many cases well over 100 years old, 120 years old. And so there's PayPal and Venmo information in the chat and the postings on all 3 websites. Happy to play requests as well, of course. Go go ahead and send them in. I'm watching the chat. But tonight's concert is called A Night of Boogie and Blues. So I want to play some more W.C. Handy music. To start off this concert, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of Handy's music in particular, and maybe play 4 or 5 of his pieces that I want to play for you, and just do them back to back tonight. I have listeners from Northern California. I thought didn't I play Jelly Roll Blues last week? Yeah, I think I did. So I'm afraid I might skip that one tonight. Let's do more of the W.C. Handy music next. In fact, I'm going to play one for you, which is the only instrumental rag he ever wrote, 1916, and it's called the Ole Miss Rag. What's interesting about this piece is that Scott Joplin himself decided to record this on a hand-played player piano roll. Why, we don't know. Personally, I think the second section of the music sounds very Joplin-esque. It sounds like something Scott Joplin may have written. They probably knew each other, although we can't prove it. And so, now the Ole Miss Rag, the title was later changed to the Ole Miss Blues, and Handy did not change even one note of the music. So that shows you how similar the styles were. He did the same thing with Yellow Dog Blues. But here from 1916 is the Ole Miss Rag. Thank you very much, Ole Miss Rag. I changed the melody just slightly there in the trio section based on some recordings of John Arpin, one of my favorite pianists. I think he really made the tune a lot better. Well, now let me see. Next up is a handy tune that you don't hear too often. And here's the original edition of it, 1915. I thought I'd show you the cover. This is called the Joe Turner Blues. And, I don't know much else to tell you about it. It's probably based on some folk character of the Deep South. And that must be old Joe Turner there on the cover. So here's the Joe Turner Blues. Thank you very much, folks. The Joe Turner Blues. As you can tell, W.C. Handy's blues in particular is very much like ragtime. Just has a few more blue notes in it. Sometimes the flatted third, flatted seventh. If you're musicians, you know what I'm talking about. I see a request for St. Louis Blues. I'm certainly going to play that, but I might save it for the grand finale, so you have to stick around. That's kind of how that works. That's what name is Isabel using tonight? That's a good question. That's my fan from France. Of course, she may be asleep. It's the middle of the night in France. Let me check Facebook real quick. Yeah, I do know Muskrat Ramble, but again, I played that last week, I think. Second time here and loving it. Oh, thank you so much for joining again. It's Caroline F. on YouTube. Sometimes it's hard to tell just by the username. I see a request here. This is from my friend Mike in Colorado Springs for the Dallas Blues. Let's break up the handy music, and I'll play the Dallas Blues for you now, which is also very important. It was published a few weeks prior to the Memphis Blues, making it the very first published piece of music with blues in the title. The Dallas Blues, which was not written in Texas, written in Oklahoma City. Thank you very much, folks. The Dallas Blues, written by Hart A. Wand, who was from Oklahoma City. And the story goes that there was a black man that worked in his shop. I think he was a pharmacist. And he'd come in every morning, sweep the floors, and said, "I'm going back to Dallas." So I think that's why Hart Wand wrote the Dallas Blues. I see Marshall is in Mississippi tonight. Is that true? What you doing down there? To avoid seasonal affective disorder. Well, we all get seasonal depression sometimes, but we've had practically no winter here in Durango at all. It's been quite amazing. Good news for my festival in April. Well, let me go back to the W.C. Handy music. I want to play at least two more for you. Let's do one of his most famous now, right in that same time period, 1916, named for the street in Memphis, Tennessee, where many blues musicians plied their trade. It's called the Beale Street Blues. Here we go. Beale Street Blues. Let me read some of the comments here. Oh, I saw a question about where you can get the original sheet music for all these tunes. Yeah, that's pretty much the answer. Roger's already answered it here in the chat. I've just been collecting rare sheet music for many years. You used to be able to find it in antique stores, but this ragtime era music, from the 1910s, turn of the century, really is hardly available anymore. In the antique stores, you go in there, you find horrible rock and roll LPs from the 60s and 70s, and so it's a challenge to find this music without going to eBay these days or other collectors, and there are a few dealers that I buy music from, but I figure it's a good investment. It's all tax deductible for me. Speaking of which, here's a fairly uncommon original edition of a W.C. Handy tune here from 1921, a little bit later in the period. This is called Aunt Hagger's Blues, but the original edition right here is actually called Aunt Hagger's Children's Blues. And so that's the name of the tune. Don't play this one quite as often, so I thought I'd pull it out. Music by W.C. Handy, lyric by Lieutenant J. Tim Bryman. He was another important black songwriter of the period. Aunt Hagger's Children Blues. Thank you very much. There's Aunt Hagger's Children Blues. Well, I may do St. Louis Blues later this evening, like I told you, but I think that's about it for the W.C. Handy music for the moment. So please go ahead and send in some more requests. Happy to do it. Hey, Edie Brogan's listening tonight. Nice to have you with us. These are friends of mine that live right here in Colorado. Let me check Facebook. Any requests over here? My cousins, Rick and Joe Carroll, are listening from Texas tonight. That's awesome. Well, I had a request. Jim, I don't know that. Barrel House Boogie. I'm not sure which tune you're talking about. I'm going to do a few more blues tunes and then get into the boogie woogie. I had a request prior to tonight's concert for a piece by the original Dixieland Jazz Band. This came out in 1919, I believe. And it's a little bit more like Dixieland Jazz than it is blues per se. But again, that was the term that sold music at the time. So this is called Bluein' the Blues. Thank you very much. Bluein' the Blues. All right. I see people discussing the festival. We'll get to that in a minute. How about Bluein' the Black Keys? Oh my gosh, Amy. First of all, that's not blues. It's novelty piano. And I have to practice that for a little bit. Sorry. That's a little bit of a difficult piece to play. I'm going to play for you now a significant tune because this was recorded 1920 by Mamie Smith and her Jazz Hounds. And here's a very special original copy of it. This is truly the first hit tune by a black blues singer, a female black blues singer, Mamie Smith, written by Perry Bradford, who's an important black songwriter and music publisher in 1920. Johnny Maddox met him too. Not only did he meet W.C. Handy, he told me he met Perry Bradford at a music shop, and his nickname was Mule Bradford. And he said, well, he really looked like a mule too. That was the first thing he told me about him. Anyway, this is called The Crazy Blues. Now, if you look closely at my copy, I'll get a little closer. This is signed for a friend of mine, a collector named Mike Montgomery, by Willie the Lion Smith, the great stride pianist. That is actually him on the cover of the music at the piano with Mamie Smith. So this is a very special copy of a significant tune. And a couple of years ago, I started playing this with another blues piece, 1922, by Lemuel Fowler, called He May Be Your Man, But He Comes to See Me Sometimes. And so I just thought they went well together. I'm going to play both of them for you, starting with the Crazy Blues. Thank you very much. Crazy Blues, and another blues tune by Lemuel Fowler, a pianist from Chicago, called He May Be Your Man, But He Comes to See Me Sometimes. Funny title. It must have been a minor hit because I have 3 different editions of the sheet music for that one, all from 1922. Well, I was hoping my bow tie would stay straight tonight. This blue one never does. Kelly just posted something important. If you're coming to the festival here in April, you really should fly directly to Durango. I don't understand why people go to Albuquerque. I don't think it saves much money. You've got to pay for gas for a 3.5-hour drive. The La Plata Airport, La Plata County, Colorado, that's where I live. It's only she says it's only 13 miles from the Strater Hotel. That's very good to know. Yes, and I will be back in Maine in September, I believe. Now, let's move on, and I'm going to play for you. This was kind of a folk tune from the first decade or two of the 20th century, and W.C. Handy published it under the title The Hesitating Blues. It was also published by a songwriter from Louisville, Kentucky, Billy Smythe, 1916, I believe, as The Hesitation Blues. And this has been recorded down through the years by dozens and dozens of great artists, from Jelly Roll Morton to Johnny Maddox to many others. In fact, one of my very favorite recordings of this piece was done by Willie Nelson with Asleep at the Wheel on a Western Swing album. I just love their take on this. It's almost more like Dixieland jazz. And of course, Art Gillum made this famous in the 1920s too. Art Gillum, the whispering pianist. I kind of play it the way he did it. He did the Billy Smythe version. So here's the Hesitation Blues. Oh baby, how long must I hesitate? And this is what Art Gillum did on his record. Percolate fingers, percolate fingers. Thank you very much. The Hesitation Blues. Well, send in some more requests, folks. I feel like I haven't got to very many yet tonight. Of course, I'm always happy to do them, as long as I kind of know the song by heart. That's really the only rule. Oh my gosh, we're over 203 listeners on YouTube. That is awesome. Oh, Diana Rouse listening from Tennessee tonight. How nice to hear from you, Diana. I saw a request for Hunting the Ball. No, I'm afraid I don't know that by heart. It's a great piece, though. Oh, yeah, we're going to do Me Deluxe Lewis here in a minute. Before I do the Me Deluxe Lewis, let me do one more traditional jazz blues tune from the 20s, now 1924, by the New Orleans Rhythm Kings, one of the great bands of the period, and they wrote this. I guess it must have been named for a cafe in New Orleans, and it's really a great tune. It's called the Tin Roof Blues. Let me play that for you next. Tin Roof Blues, then we'll move on to something else. Thank you very much. There's the Tin Roof Blues. Okay, let's move into some boogie woogie now. In the late 1920s, boogie woogie got its name. And in my opinion, the first true boogie woogie piano record, however, was made 1927 by Meadlux Lewis. And there were three men who were known as the kings of boogie woogie piano: Meadlux Lewis, Pete Johnson, and Albert Ammons. I think Meadlux might be my favorite of the three. And in 1927, he recorded the Honky Tonk Train Blues, which is really the first boogie woogie record, although it did not have boogie in the title. Let me play it for you now. It's pretty close to the way he recorded it in 1927, although there's a few other licks I've thrown in, a few extra choruses. Here it is, the Honky Tonk Train Blues. Train Blues. Thank you, folks. Somebody get that man a beer. Yeah, maybe after the concert. So I want to play these two tunes back to back because these are important in the history of boogie woogie. Honky Tonk Train came first in 1927 on Paramount Records, which was what they called race records in those days for African American artists. Then in 1928, the next year, Pinetop Smith from Chicago made the first record with boogie woogie in the title. Pinetop's original boogie woogie. So let me play that for you now, just my own version of it. And as a side note, Tommy Dorsey made this famous in later years, World War II, did a really terrific swing record of this. And I forget if I mentioned this on YouTube, the virtuals yet or not. Tommy Dorsey's grandson lives in Durango, and a friend of mine knows him. I'm going to try and get him to come to this year's Ragtime Festival in Durango, Skip Dorsey, and it'd be pretty special to get to play some of the Tommy Dorsey music for him. So anyway, here we go with Pinetop's original Boogie Woogie. Thank you very much. Pinetop's original Boogie Woogie. So the Boogie Woogie is nothing more than fast blues. It's the same 12-bar blues chord progression with a little bit different patterns in the left hand. And so I'm going to get into some more Boogie Woogie here momentarily, but it's already past 7 o'clock here in Durango, Colorado. And I'd like to make a second announcement. I do accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and every little bit helps with my career. It's not been easy to try and make a career out of this, The virtual concerts have essentially helped make that a reality. And you can also tip in the chat on YouTube directly through YouTube. It probably is your Google account because they own YouTube, and so that's how that works. There's also a P.O. box on my website for checks. Yes, I see that. Thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. And let me give another quick announcement about the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival. Of course, it's not just ragtime. It's early blues and jazz and even swing as well. And so I'm producing this event, which is coming up soon, the third weekend of April here in beautiful Durango, Colorado. We have 3 major venues, which are 3 of the most important facilities in downtown Durango, Colorado. The historic Strater Hotel, built in 1887. The Durango Arts Center, beautiful theater with a 9-foot concert grand piano that seats 172 people. And then for the first time, and I have wanted to do this just about my whole life, we're finally going to have a ragtime train on the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. And so please consider getting your tickets soon. The full festival passes will sell out. My board member, Judy Moldauer, told me there's just a few of those left, not too many. So go to our website, durangoragtime.com, and that will take you directly to a link to Hold My Ticket, where you can buy the festival passes. And you have to buy the train tickets separately through the Durango and Silverton Railroad website. Look for the Ragtime Train. I'd love to sell, maybe 3 or 4 coaches worth of tickets on that train so that they will want to continue doing this every year. And so the train ride is going to be a lot of fun. When we get back, we're all going to jam in the Railroad Museum. And there's one more thing. If you want to attend the farewell brunch and say goodbye to all the musicians on Sunday morning at the Ragtime Festival, you have to make a separate reservation. Just reserve brunch. It's at the Mahogany Grill this year, which is the fine dining restaurant in the Strater Hotel. If you have any questions about that, any of that, don't hesitate to contact me. Now let's see. That's always a kind thing to say. Give the man a Panama hat. Bob Seeley would be proud. I hope so. He was really my great inspiration as far as boogie woogie piano music. And he knew the original practitioners of this music. In fact, I'm going to slow it down a bit and play a piece for you that I learned from Bob Seeley. When I say I learned it from him, it's the same thing when I say, I learned such and such song from Johnny Maddox. What I mean is I heard them play it, and so I learned it. Doesn't mean that they taught it to me. Neither one of them ever gave me piano lessons. But I was inspired to learn this by Bob Seeley, who probably heard the piece of music when it first came out in 1940. And this was written in part by Freddie Slack, who was a big band leader and boogie-woogie piano player, I think on Capitol Records in the 40s. He's kind of been forgotten, but he was very popular at the time. This was written by 3 very important big band leaders of the 40s, Freddie Slack, Ray McKinley, and Will Bradley. And it's a slow boogie-woogie tune. There are slow boogie-woogies. Will Durango be free from snow in April? Yes. I'm about 99% sure. So here's this slow boogie. It's called Strange Cargo, subtitled A Boogie Woogie Nocturne. Oh, it's on Columbia Records. Okay, so maybe Freddie Slack wasn't on Capitol. It's Columbia Records. Anyway, this is called Strange Cargo. Thank you very much. Strange Cargo, Boogie Woogie Nocturne. Yeah, we've hit over 200 several times on YouTube. I'm thrilled with that. By the way, if you enjoy the music, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow my Facebook page, and that way you never miss a concert. It helps out. What else have I got on my list? I want to go back to the ragtime era blues just for a moment and play for you another one I learned from Johnny. When I say that, what I mean is he took the sheet music down to the copy store and sent it to me when I was a kid. And I've loved this piece ever since. It was written in World War I and came out of Houston, Texas, 1917. So it's called the Warbride Blues. And he taught it to me. It's kind of short, you know, this blues only has 12 bars of music. He said, repeat each section twice, makes it a better piece of music, and I totally agree. I've played it that way ever since, the Warbride Blues. Thank you very much, Warbride Blues. Well, let me see. How about another sort of medium tempo boogie woogie instead of a super fast one? Here's another Meadlux Lewis piece, which was one of his biggest hits, I think, outside of Honky Tonk Train. And sometime in the 30s, Bob Crosby's orchestra recorded both Honky Tonk Train blues, and this piece made them into real big hits. It was named for the great blues pianist Jimmy Yancey from Chicago, but again, written by Meadlux Lewis. It's the Yancey Special. Thank you very much. Yancey special. Well, send in the requests, folks. I feel like I'm not getting very many of them tonight. Always happy to do that. Again, St. Louis Blues may be my grand finale tonight. I also saw a couple of requests for Bumble, Boogie. Either one of those would work real well. Of course, I suppose I could play them both if I've got the energy for it. Oh, that's true. Diana says, wish Durango was closer. The ragtime train sounds like a bucket list item to me. Well, it is for me, too. We're finally going to do it. Look, I'm checking Twitch. Looks like you were reading comments while perfectly playing, and that's mind-boggling to me. Well, I'm not reading all of the comments, as you all know. Unfortunately, I miss a few of them sometimes. I want to play some more Meadlux Lewis for you. Let me know whether you want to hear Chicago Flyer or Boogie Woogie at the Philharmonic. Those are my other two Meadlux Lewis pieces. Bumble Boogie, I see that. Okay, maybe I'll do that. It's gotten to where I play that almost every year I'm at, in Maine, Roger. That's a wonderful nightclub. Cadenza. Chicago Stomp. Well, I don't know that, but I do know Chicago Flyer. Let me play that. This is a Meadlux Lewis record from about 1944. Again, I learned it from Bob Seeley. This is a little bit more like Seeley plays it, actually. And I think it was on Blue Note Records, major jazz record label from New York. Blue Note. Here is, Meadlux Lewis, the Chicago Flyer. Chicago Flyer. Thank you very much, folks. Authentic Boogie Woogie by Meadlux Lewis. Well, see, the new people are still joining the concert tonight. I better keep going. I'm going to play for you my big arrangement of St. Louis blues. I first learned this tune from Johnny Maddox, who taught me that it was really written in ragtime, and it was played, as I said at the beginning of this concert, for dancing in those years. I was going through old sheet music to pull out some cover art to show you, and I realized, I bet I've never shown this, the chorus of St. Louis Blues is based on an earlier tune that W.C. Handy wrote himself. This was published in Memphis in 1913. St. Louis Blues didn't come out until 1914. But the chorus of the tune is the same as the melody in this piece, the Jogo Blues, 1913. That's what the cover art looked like. Had this wonderful black guy playing the piano on it. I hope nobody's offended by that. I think it's wonderful. So that's a kind of a rare thing most people don't know about. And so I played in ragtime, the way it was originally written, and then Boogie Woogie, which again I borrowed from Bob Seeley. My saying is I only steal from the best. So here's the St. Louis Blues, Sunday night version. Thank you very much, everybody. That's the St. Louis Blues. Played that in the Diamond Bell last night, and I had a really terrific crowd. They went wild over the St. Louis Blues, so I threw in an extra chorus there at the end of it. And when the audience is attentive, it really makes it special for me. They just loved it last night. Kind of reminded me of the Johnny Maddox days when he was playing there. Of course, this was before the days of cell phones for the most part. People weren't so addicted to them, so he really commanded attention and brought back some good memories. Let me mention a couple of things real quick before I play the real finale for the night. There will be no virtual concert next week. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town. I think it's the Oscars, so it's just as well. I'm not going to be around anyway. But I, of course, will be back with a virtual concert again 2 weeks from tonight. Put that on your calendars. I think it's March 22nd. It's the next Sunday. I'll be playing online, so don't forget. I'd love to see you all back in 2 weeks. Hopefully Chris Drury will be here and be able to tune my piano again before the next virtual concert. I think he's planning on coming about the 21st. So then it'll be ready for the 22nd. That'll be fun. I don't know what I'll be doing, but with that said, let me close tonight's concert. It's a little early, but I want to end on a high note, and I'll play the Bumble Boogie for you. Now, it's funny. A lot of people call it Flight of the Bumblebee or the Bumblebee Boogie. That's not really the title of it. It's the Bumble Boogie, which is based on Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee. I mean, the music is similar, but this is the Boogie Woogie version. So here we go. Bumble Boogie. Thank you very much, everybody. That's the Bumble Boogie, based on Flight of the Bumblebee. And so I think I'm going to leave the concert there. A little early tonight, but I got to end on a high note. And I sure appreciate all of your support. Thank you for the virtual tips. I'd also really appreciate it if you'd consider coming out here for the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival, April 16th through the 19th. Visit DurangoRagtime.com to get your tickets now. And it's really one of the biggest events of the year for me, so I would appreciate your support of that as well. Tickets will run out pretty soon, so check that out. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be back 2 weeks from tonight with another virtual concert. Until then, take care, everybody. Thanks again.